pray with me? Our Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the ability to be in this place to discuss the business of our community. We thank you for our strength and our minds to do the things of our community. Thank you for wisdom and help us in this place. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Remain standing, and I'm going to ask Troop 614 if they will come front and center and lead our pledge tonight. We're honored to have this Girl Scout troop here, and I'm going to talk more about their accolades in just a moment. Ladies, if you will face the flag and lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Girls, if you will, stay there just a moment. Julie, I'm going to ask, is their leader, if you'll come up with them, if you like, or you can, somebody else can take pictures for you. This Girl Scout troop has led our council in the pledge on several different occasions, and most recently they've been recognized a troop of distinction. The Daisy Dozen Elite Troop of 1,500 Girl Scout troops representing 41 counties in the North Carolina Coastal Plains Council. This troop is one of 12 troops and one of only 2 junior Girl Scout troops to receive this honor. Among the qualifying factors in their selection was a commitment to service, strong participation in local and council-sponsored events, and offering quality programs based on Girl Scout leadership and their experience. And Julie Smith is their leader, and we are very proud of you girls and so forth. We have given you a town pin, I think, before the meeting, and we want you to wear that in honor, and we do thank you for your service to our community, and congratulations on your distinct honor. So let's give them a hand. Okay, Julie, would you like to say anything? Or?
Thank you all. This has become an annual tradition for us to kick off our Girl Scout year by opening a town council meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, and the girls look forward to it every year, and we thank everyone of the town council for helping us out with this.
Thank you again, Julie. Congratulations, young ladies. Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, gentlemen, you see the agenda before you. I do want to make one friendly amendment on business item 1. It's written that there will be a volunteer annexation of 60.10 acres. Instead, it will be 18.94. I think you've got that update. I would like for that to clearly be in the record as before we approve the agenda. Any other amendments or additions to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor, if you would add item number 10, business item for compensatory timesheet, please.
Okay, we'll add a business item 10 to discuss compensatory time process. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Madam Clerk, if you'll record that. Anything else? Not hearing none, do I have a motion on the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved. Tonight we have, or I have the distinguished pleasure to honor one of our citizens, one of our co-workers that has seemed to go somewhere else, but we're very proud of him and his honor of what he has done here for us. Chris, I'm going to ask if you'll come forward. Chris needs no introduction to us in the town of Smithfield. He has been doing the Downtown Development Corporation for 13 years or so now, I think, and I see him running downtown in different disguises with the umbrella for ham and yam or something. That depends on what day it is, but Chris, we want, the council and I would like to read this proclamation that I prepared for you. And the proclamation is in honor of Chris Johnson's service to the town of Smithfield. Whereas Chris Johnson has served as Executive Director of the Downtown Smithfield Development Corporation for 13 years, And Chris Johnson was a catalyst and is still a catalyst for economic development in the town of Smithfield. Chris Johnson was instrumental in the completion of the Market Street Streetscape project and keeping the Ava Garden Museum in the downtown Smithfield area. Chris Johnson has worked tirelessly to expand the annual Ham and Yam Festival, enabling it to be the success that it is today. Chris Johnson implemented the Smithfield Historical Area Revitalization Program, which promotes business growth and provides an incentive to property owners for the purpose of improving the appearance and viability of downtown Smithfield Municipal Service District, and to stimulate long-term investments in the town of Smithfield. Chris has always been willing to place his concerns for the public and the public good ahead of his own personal interest, thus earning the admiration and high regard for other civic leaders and the affection of the host of the residents here in town. Chris Johnson has demonstrated in many practical ways his deep and genuine love for our community and the surrounding area. Whereas the town of Smithfield is deeply indebted to Chris Johnson for his service to our community, now therefore I, Daniel Evans Jr., the mayor of the town of Smithfield, along with the members of this city council, express our sincere appreciation to Chris Johnson for his distinguished service to the town of Smithfield, and highly commend you, Chris, for the manner in which you've carried out your duties and responsibilities. There's no way I could have put everything on this charter here, or proclamation, but we know you've done a lot, and we appreciate the value which you've given to us. Thank you very much. In addition to that, since I've been mayor, I've only given out 4 of these, because I really believe a key to the city is something that is special and should be held in high esteem. And I think you deserve that, Chris. I think you've done a great job for us, and you'll continue to represent Smithfield with the county and bring the municipalities the interest that we deserve. So therefore, this is a key to the city in recognition for 13 years of service to the town of Smithfield. Thank you very much.
First of all, I want to thank the citizens and my board of directors for allowing me this opportunity to serve as the executive director for the past 13 years. Each morning I've woken up enjoying going to work. There was never a day that I dreaded, even when it was at 3 o'clock in the morning during the middle of Ham and Yam Festival. I was out there and I enjoyed every minute of it. I know that I'm going to still be a resident of Smithfield, and I'm going to remain active in the town of Smithfield, obviously changing hats, but know that I'll always have a special place here in this chamber and representing the town and the citizens. So I just want to say thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, you're not changing your cell phone number.
I've got that big announcement already.
Okay. More to the programmatic issues. We have public hearings. The first public hearing we have tonight is for conditional use permit 13-07, Atkinson and Davis Memorial. Before I read the announcement, do I have a motion that we go into public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? This applicant is seeking a conditional use permit to operate a funeral home on the property located within a B3 business zoning district. The property considered for approval is located on the West Market Street, approximately 230 feet southeast of its intersection with Whitley Drive. The property is further identified as Johnston County Tax ID 150-86048. If anyone wishes to be heard in this public hearing, I'd ask that you stand at this time and be sworn by the clerk. If you wish to be heard and make presentations.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you. Mr. Emler, I recognize you at this point.
Council, if you allow me to give you the location of the property, it is on Highway 70 West, across the street from Bullitt Brothers and the old Peter Lumber Company, and the town park is the immediate behind it. It's the soccer field on the west side of town. The applicant is seeking a conditional use permit to allow for a funeral home or to provide funeral services. I think a word of explanation is due here. We have contacted the state licensing for the funeral homes in the state, and there's two ways they look at it. One is an embalming service, and the other one is actually an entity that provides funeral services. This is basically an embalming service with a small screening area, a viewing area that's going to be allotted. The state does not differentiate between that at all. If there's a place for one body to be in repose and a place for one person to view the body, their function is a funeral home. So if you'll just keep in mind that this is a funeral home and not an embalming services, which is the request that's before you. There's 0.65 acres in the business. This is formerly the carpet company owned by Raymond Cockrell. The zoning is B3 business. The previous uses have been basically retail carpet sales. There was a home improvement store there, and more recently there was a religious bookstore there. The proposed use is mentioned for a funeral home for a conditional use permit. There does not appear to be any environmental sensitive issues associated with the property, and it does appear to be outside the floodplain. The adjacent zoning to the property is either all B3 or either heavy industrial. The property that the park is located on is actually zoned B3 commercial. Bobby Atkinson is requesting a conditional use permit to allow for a funeral home at the proposed West Smithfield location. The previous use of the building was carpet sales with warehousing of new carpet, and changing the use as a funeral home will trigger full compliance with parking and landscape requirements. The proposed site plan does not appear to meet either. You do have a copy of the site plan inside, and I will further define what we see as the deficiencies. The consistency with the Town of Smithfield Comprehensive Growth Management Plan, the zoning, which is B3, and the conditional use are allowable uses within the district, and they are in compliance with that. The Unified Development Code is another matter, in the fact that the total building square footage, only a portion of it is actually going to be used for the viewing area, which is about 900 square feet. You have that in your in your agenda packet. And the town's parking requirement is one space per 20 square foot of chapel or assembly or viewing area, which would dictate that 930 square feet to have 47 parking spaces to function as a funeral home. The site plan provided by the applicant indicates 16 proposed parking spaces on the outside with 2 additional parking spaces on the inside for hearse and limo. This represents only about 34% of the minimum required parking. Also of concern on the parking space is how the large vestibule space would be utilized going into the viewing room, which is even larger in size. It's approximately 1,500 square feet, so that could also accommodate additional people. So that's also a consideration. Staff would recommend that this conditional use permit be granted if it is strictly used as an embalming facility. If the property is operated as a funeral home, then staff does not recommend approval because of the insufficiency of parking as well as access and egress. By also it being a change of use with the property, there's other code compliance issues that come in, and we would also be resubmitting to DOT for driveway permit approval, and they may have something to say about it. Chances are not, but we always, on a change of use, give them the opportunity. The compatibility with the surrounding land uses, here, as I mentioned earlier, It is an allowable use within the district. It's adjacent to public park, however, and that there's limited availability for proper screening and landscaping and buffering between that and the park. Signs, the site has one existing ground sign that appears to be qualified for a permit that would allow the sign to be refaced, and there's also an existing billboard located on the site. Smithfield provides fire, police, and utility service to the area. Progress Energy provides electric. Findings are in your packet there. This is a quasi-judicial hearing in the conditional use permit process. So you have your finding of fact, and as you go through that, take into consideration each one finding in favor or against their conditional use permit request. So with that being said, staff stands for question.
Mr. Embley,
Yes.
did you define embalming facility prior to us? Have you or can you?
I can give you what the state sign states. An embalming facility located outside of a funeral establishment, that's not considered, it's not part of a funeral home, shall comply with the requirements of GS 9210 items 1 through 8, which basically states the minimum requirements for a funeral, an embalming facility. 1, that it contain a standard type operating table. 2, it contains adequate drainage. 3, it contains sanitary waste receptacle. 4, contain an instrument sterilization facility. 5, have wall-to-wall floor covering of tile, concrete, or other material that can be easily cleaned. 6, be kept in a sanitary condition subject to the inspection by the board or its agents. 7, have a placard or a sign on the door indicating that a preparation room is private. And 8, have proper ventilation or purification system to maintain non-hazard levels of airborne contamination. Might state that the state regulates funeral homes and embalming facilities, so they're subject to various inspections out above and beyond what our normal code inspections would be for fire and building.
Any other questions for Mr. Embley?
Mr. Ember, I understand the state does not distinguish between embalming facility and funeral home, as you stated, but we can distinguish between the two, can't we, with the conditions we would put on this use? Meaning, as the applicant has asked in materials I've read, we can put in there that it's granted if we limit it to limited viewing for family, immediate family only, can't we?
That would be a condition that the council could elect to put on the process there. However, how can we enforce that, and how can we accommodate the parking? Because how do you limit viewing is the question.
I understand, but isn't any embalming facility going to have some way for the family to view before you take the body to a more public viewing memorial service?
The facility in Asheville that my father was interning with did not have that capability. We went to the facility, we made arrangements for my father, but we never got to see it. They had a conference room where you could meet with the family. They had a sales room where various products could be purchased, but there was actually no viewing area at the facility.
Perhaps a more simpler question would be, will any funerals be performed at the proposed site?
Based on the way the petition is submitted, their intent is to have limited viewing to the family, but the way the state envisions it and the way their regulations read, and we confirmed that by speaking with their counsel, Steve Dirksen, and he said that it's either an embalming facility with no services, or if they, as the wording in the state requirements say, let's see, let me quote correctly. Embalming facilities may be used to embalm dead human bodies and shall not be used as public accommodation. The owner of the facility must obtain a funeral establishment permit under the general statutes if the facility is to be held out to the public, used as a public accommodation, or used to engage any activity defined in the practice of a funeral service. And I asked the counsel for the state board direct, what does that mean? And they said one body with one person viewing is considered a funeral home or a funeral service provider. So to answer your question, if it has a viewing area, it will be a funeral home.
Any other questions, Mr. Tindall? Is the petitioner here? If you'd like to come forward and make a comment to your application. Please state your name for the clerk and your address, if you would, please, for the record.
Robert W. Atkinson, Jr. You want my physical or P.O. Box? I'll give you the physical. 4240 Massey Holt Road, Princeton, North Carolina, 27569.
Okay. Just talk to us about this application. What is it you're actually applying for?
Basically, what it is, it'll be only limited to the immediate family to view a body. Once the body's prepared, that's it. And then taken to another location.
Any questions from the council?
Well, is that pretty standard in the funeral industry, that the family get to view the body before it's presented to the public?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Atkinson, so are you proposing to have this facility as an embalming facility or a funeral home facility?
It's just going to be like an embalming facility, not no funeral home.
Okay. And the building is capable of being converted under conditional use changes with the building code? Is that building capable of being converted
Yes,
to
sir,
an
it
embalming
is.
facility?
Yes, sir.
Are you going to allow limited viewing by the families though? I mean, didn't you just say that?
Just immediate family, like for instance, if you pass your wife and kids and, you know, and maybe your aunt and uncle, that's it.
Well, I mean, is it not, I mean, I don't know, it's not my business or anyone here really, but, I mean, I think Mr. Emler just read a pretty clear distinction that if there's any viewing whatsoever, it's considered by the state to be a funeral home, and you have to be permitted as a funeral home.
It's not really a funeral home.
But
No funeral home.
are you going to allow viewing by family members?
Just the immediate family only. You know, immediate family is not 20, 30 people. Immediate family is usually 6 to 10 people sometimes, that's it.
Right. Depending on your family and what size it is. I guess I'm just trying to understand, it sounds like the state, not us, not anybody else, says if there's any viewing whatsoever, it is a funeral home, period, the end. One person, an aunt, the only brother, anybody goes there, it's a funeral home. I'm just trying to understand. It sounds like you want to be a funeral home and not an embalming facility, or both.
Oh, I mean, it's just embalming, that's it.
So there'll be no viewing at all.
For the immediate family,
Okay, well, that's what I'm just
Yeah.
trying to understand. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to trick you. It sounds like the state says any viewing whatsoever, it is a funeral home, by definition.
from what I was to understand, just the immediate family, and then no, like, this whole board or everybody couldn't come, just the immediate family. If Mr. Spence passed away, and y'all his friends, y'all, you know. What you say, it's 2 of us. And they couldn't.
You'd have enough parking.
I would. As I sit there and said, don't come because it's Bob Spence.
Sorry, Bob. Mr. Atkinson, just joking, all jokes aside, do you operate any other facilities like this?
No, sir.
This is your first time?
Yes, sir.
Doing this? Okay. So you don't plan, and I know it's been asked, but you don't plan to have any type of memorial services, any
No,
type
sir.
of services going on there?
No, sir.
Mr. Atkinson, Are you doing this on a private owned or incorporation? Is it your private? It's going to be private, just you, or you incorporated with someone else?
It'll be LLC, that's what you're asking. Is that what you're asking? Mm-hmm. Yeah. LLC.
Any other questions, Mr. Harris?
Are you licensed in Baltimore yourself?
I'm doing my apprenticeship. Once I do my apprenticeship, that's it. And my cousin is licensed.
Does the state come down and inspect the actual facility before they allow you to operate?
Yes, sir, they do. You had to have certain things in a prep room and all. Sterilizer.
Any other questions?
It's not a question, Mayor, but it just seems a little confusing that the applicant is telling us he wants to set an embalming facility, but it sounds like it's a funeral home by definition from the state.
Well, practically, it's going to be an embalming facility, but technically, by the law, it's going to be a funeral home, apparently, from the statutes. So it's a matter of practicality versus technicality.
I don't think the zoning code uses the definition of the state embalming statute. I don't think you have to bind him by that definition. So I think Mr. Asher basically right when he said that, this definition for the planning purposes is for planning purposes, not necessarily for managing the disposition of body waste and other things that are done on the state levels. So you've got two different sections of the state law. We don't need to draft that definition over. And you may have other reasons you want to turn this down because of parking. But I wouldn't do it on a definitional basis, pulling the definition out of the state code for a totally separate section, unless Mr. Kimber can tell us where that ties into our code.
In parking.
And what?
Parking requirements.
I mean, the definition, is there a definition somewhere in the code related to embalming and funeral homes?
We do not address embalming at all. We do address funeral homes.
I mean, I'm not sure that it is, I don't think it's necessary to adopt the state regulation definition of funeral home. If you hit the track areas are different, I sort of agree with what Mr. Asher said initially.
Let me ask you a question or two. Will there be a chapel?
No.
How will they view the body?
Just it'll be a little small viewing room, smaller than this, real small. The body, let's say if I had a body here, it would sit there. It's just beautiful.
You understood what Mr. Ember said when he talked about the difficulty of enforcement. If this board were to approve it as an embalming facility with limited viewing by the family, it becomes very difficult for the town to enforce that condition. You understand, if this board were to do that if you violated that condition, then you would be shut down.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes it's hard to, I would think it would be hard to have people gathered, even immediate family, and not have some sort of service.
There won't be no services.
I also understood, Mr. Ember, that if for an embalming facility, the parking is fine. It's for a funeral home, it is not in compliance.
It's deficient as a funeral home.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, are you planning on having a crematory too?
Nothing has been said about a crematory. Not till you mentioned it.
Did you answer his question?
No crematory.
Okay. I think that was the question. All right, anything else? The applicant. Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, if there are any other questions of Mr. Embler or any of the applicant, we have a motion, we close the public hearing unless there's anyone else wish to be heard. Not, we have a motion to close this public hearing.
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and second. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I will end you to the findings of fact, gentlemen. Unless there's further discussion. Glad to hear that. Okay, the finding of fact, as you see, letters A through B in each category. We don't have a general motion, we'll go through each one. First one is based on evidence testimony presented in the finding of the town council application will not materially endanger the public health and safety if located where proposed. You see the writing, the proposed funeral home will not materially endanger the public where shown because the site has adequate parking available and layout of the site, facilities, safe movement of automobile, pedestrian traffic, and little additional congestion. That's if you approve. You see the basis of the denial. Proposed funeral home sales may materially endanger the public where shown because the site does not have adequate parking available and the layout along the site will create automobile and pedestrian traffic congestion. Is there a feeling one way or the other in those categories?
Well, I'm inclined to approve the request with appropriate conditions. And the way these findings of facts are worded in terms of funeral home, I don't like that. I know that that's a state definition, but I would rather put embalming facility.
I agree.
With limited view.
That was my point earlier.
So I would have moved that we approve all the findings of fact under the condition that the term funeral home be changed to embalming facility with limited viewing by immediate family only.
With no memorial service. Madam Clerk, have you got that motion?
I move we approve each findings of fact with the term funeral home being changed to embalming facility with limited viewing by immediate family only and no memorial services.
We have a second. Motion is second. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Based on that findings of fact being approved, the decision to record is based on this motion, majority vote of the town council, town of Smithfield, conditional use permit, application CUP 13-07 is hereby approved under those conditions. Do I have a motion to that statement?
May I ask, does staff have any more, given our vote on the findings of fact, does staff have any other requested conditions? I pose that to you, Mr. Featherston.
To advise the council correctly in this matter, that to get a variance from the Board of Adjustments would be in line on the parking requirement, and that I need directions as far as landscaping of where we want to carry the landscaping to a level that it comes into compliance or stays the way it is, or what?
If I can help with that one, Ms. Schindler, on the landscaping question, does the landscaping requirement become more intense if it's a funeral home versus an embalming facility, or is it the same? No matter, it's just a change of use.
It's a change of use in the property, and it's just driven by the change of use and nothing else.
So there's no reason, I mean, that if it's a change of use, they've got to meet the landscaping requirement as everyone does.
That's correct.
So they've got to meet the landscaping requirement. And there's no.
That's correct. As close as they can get it. The site physically will not allow them to do a complete 100% compliance.
So with that, I would ask that it be clearly stated that the applicant must meet all landscaping requirements for a change of use. And then secondly, with regard to the parking requirement, will you analyze this now, given that change as a funeral home or as an embalming facility? I know those parking requirements are different. I mean, I think the intent is to analyze it as a non-funeral home
is the way the ordinance was, I mean, the way it's been proposed and voted upon, if it's considered an embalming facility, it's sufficient. The situation we've got as far as use, it's different. So we'll just have to, if parking's an issue, we don't have anything to fall back on.
Is it too late to add the conditions that the planning board approved, that their approval upon?
The planning board was limited. They recommended approval with a condition that the spaces be limited and totally for the use of the embalming facility, and that was it. Let me find it and I'll give it to you. Just one moment.
Well, according to the notes I have, Mark Lane made a motion seconded by Ashley Spain to recommend approval of the conditional use permit to allow a funeral home on property located within the B3 zoning district with condition that no more than 18 vehicles are on the site at any time and that the proper landscaping buffers will be installed. They didn't approve it as an embalming facility according to what we have.
That's correct. Theirs is a recommendation to the council. The council, if I understand the motion correctly, considered it an embalming facility and not a funeral home.
I think we've clearly established it's an embalming facility based on the motion and the approval of the council with those limited spaces and with landscaping required as will allow. Is that correct? That was the motion.
Yeah, and I think the landscaping requirements there, whether we make it condition or not, so we don't have to add that. It's in compliance with the parking as an embalming facility. Already.
So I think we're established at what we do. Okay, we have that motion in a second, and we have it approved, so. Okay. So we do need a general vote based on the motion and those requirements of the conditional use. Do I have a motion that we accept that?
So moved.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, that concludes our public hearing. Under citizens' comments, we have a scheduled Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams, would you like to come forward and citizens' comments? Mr. Williams, you've done a great, outstanding job of presenting the facts of Piedmont and your concerns. So if I can, just limit you to those suggestions that may be something of new value for us. So because it is on the agenda tonight, and I appreciate that.
Okay, I'll be very brief and I will read you what was the consensus of the community and how they wanted it stated. But we are amendable at a later time to get this at more length so it's explainable.
Yes.
It says residents of East Smithfield, and I'm only a spokesman for them. Mayor Daniel Evans Jr. and all Smithfield council members and Piedmont Natural Gas. This letter petition is a follow-up to the last petition and request made to Piedmont Natural Gas in August 2011. We, the residents of East Smithfield, have freely signed this petition asking Piedmont Natural Gas at their expense to bring natural gas into our homes. That is, bring the gas line with meter to each of our homes as promised in the 1988 agreement. So I will go down. It says, we respectfully request you immediately begin to lay gas line and meters to the homes of East Smithfield as promised 25 years ago. Natural gas in our community improves the economic development and growth of our community, city, and county by creating financial savings with natural gas versus propane gas. We, the residents of East Smithfield, are not interested in allowing Piedmont to resurvey our community again. Attached is a list of all residents by name and addresses who have agreed to have natural gas. Please see the attached sheets with names and addresses. I gave a preliminary one to Mr. Saberstein, and I have more that's more comprehensive, but there are more people who want to be added to it. But it's a matter of time getting there and getting them at the proper time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. That will also be talked about in the regular agenda in a few moments. So thank you for the brief comments. Anyone else under citizens' comments wish to be heard? Yes, sir. Come forward. I think we know you, Tony, but if you will state your name for the clerk just so she'll have it, please.
Tony Nixon, Smithfield.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, I'd like to inform you and let you know that we have such fine police officers, and also give kudos to our Recreation Department and Mr. Tim Johnson for a very successful event that they performed, Fun in the Park in the Smith Collins Park on the 24th. And I believe I did copy each one of you gentlemen on the note that I sent to Sergeant Obranovich. And again, I'd like to thank that fine officer, the Recreation Department, Chief Scott, for allowing that to happen. And we appreciate the support of the members of the council who were in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry I was out of town, but I understand it was a great event. Had about 200 folks attend.
Really nice.
Very good. Very good. Thank you for your involvement as well. Anyone else wish to be heard under citizens' comments? Please come forward. Okay. Right. We'll move to consent agenda. Do I have a motion on the items for consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion is second. Those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Moving to business item number 1 with that amendment. The annexation request for Julian Marshall. Petitioner is requesting to annex approximately, as amended, 18.94 acres of the land in the town of Smithfield corporate limits. Properties considered for the approval are located on the west side of Mallard Road, approximately 1,550 feet northeast of the intersection of Brogdon Road, and further identified as a portion of the Johnston County Tax ID 15K 11019F and 15K 11019D. Mr. Emler, I recognize you for the business item.
At last month's meeting, if you will recall, the petition was originally submitted with 60-some acres to you. During the comment section of the public hearing, Mr. Marshall requested that the council take into consideration by annexing by phase as opposed to annexing the entire 60-some acres up front. Subsequent to that information, the petition was revised. You have a revised map as well as description. We're talking about 18.94 acres now. That information has been forwarded to you there's basically 2 entities that own the land. One parcel is owned by Julian Marshall and his 2 sons. The other parcel is owned by Marshall Incorporated, which is the parcel closest to Mallard Road. The petition as being resubmitted, the clerk verified it for sufficiency, which is what you directed her to do at the last meeting. The signatures are all there. They have been verified and notarized to the fact that they are the owners of the property. What you're requested to do tonight is to accept the sufficiency statement from the clerk, which is in your packet. And from there, you're asked to act upon the resolution to set the public hearing at the October 1st Town Council meeting for the actual annexation proceedings. And just to revise, just to go over and state what it is, it's 18.94 acres. It represents what will be phase 1 development of the entire property. It will be effectuated immediately upon your action upon it, and then when it's recorded at the courthouse. So we're talking about within 2 or 3 days after you take action on it, it will be in effect recorded. That question has come up from several of you as to when the annexation would actually occur. So I hope that answers that. And everything else is pretty straightforward. Just tonight, the actual hearing will be next month.
Any questions on this? Okay. Hearing none, the request is that we I guess, allow or accept this certificate of sufficiency for petition requesting voluntary, non-contiguous annexation. Do I have a motion, is that accepted, for 18.94 acres?
I make that motion.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Mr. Tindall. Second business item is for S13-4, Amos D. Simmons Jr. The applicant is requesting to divide a 1 acre tract of land from a 10.46 acre tract of land. The property considered for subdivision approval is located on the existing private easement named Everett Lane and approximately 2,000 feet west of Buffalo Road. The property is further identified as Johnston County Tax ID 140-75003. Mr. Trimble?
Okay, let me reference you to the property before we start the description. For reference, this blue tract right here is the middle school, Smithfield Middle School, and then the property lies behind it, adjacent to the river, and somewhat adjacent to Holland Drive. First off, let me state that this description is the next agenda item also is very similar to this, and the same code inference is causing the situation that is before you tonight. Basically, what both of these requests are asking is to allow someone to cut a small piece of land out of their property to give it to a child or a relative so that they might be able to build a house on it, is really what we're talking about. Unfortunately, our code says that if the tract is over 5 acres in size, that the town council actually has to make that decision. If it's 5 acres or less, it's an administrative decision, and staff can do it, providing certain other criteria are met, like water and sewer is already available and it has street access and those things. So what we're talking about here is that the applicant is requesting to basically take 1 acre of land out of his 10.46 acre tract, and his intent is to deed that over to his son so his son can build a house there. And that's the pretty short, simple, and sweet of it. The planning board considered it at its August 3rd meeting, voted to recommend approval of the preliminary subdivision, and the town council is now asked to take actions on that and take it into consideration and render a decision. Might I add, there are no water and sewer extensions associated with this.
You've heard the petition request. Motion is to approve the petition. Second. Motion is second. Those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Seven. All right, the third. You have something else, Dan? No. Okay, the third item is with S13-5, Mildred Roberts, the applicant.
Daniel, at this time, I would like to recuse myself from these discussions and vote. Mildred Roberts was my great aunt.
A request that he be recused. You need a motion on that, or?
I'll make a motion, we accept that.
Second. Motion is second. Those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Mr. Crocker will be recused from this reading. S13-5, item 3, Mildred Roberts. The applicant is requesting to divide a 56.12 acre tract of land into a .99 acre tract and a 1.34 acre tract of land within a 53.79 acre tract remaining. The property considered for subdivision approval is located on the west side of Yeoverton Grove Road, approximately 4,370 feet north of the intersection with Brogdon Road. The property is further identified as Johnston County Tax ID 15L11041A. Mr. Embley?
Here again, essentially the same situation, although a much larger tract of land. It will be divided not into 2 parcels, but it will be divided into 3. One is .99 acres, the other one is 1.34 acres, and the remainder would be at 53.79 acres. This is allowed under our code as normally as a minor subdivision, with the exception that it exceeds 5 acres in size, so therefore the council has to make the decision again. So with that being said, the council The planning board at its August the 3rd meeting voted to recommend approval of the preliminary subdivision plat for Mildred Roberts, and the town council is now asked to take it under consideration and render a decision.
I move we approve the petition.
Motion second. Those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Item 4, consideration and approval for an interconnection agreement with ESA Renewables LLC. I think manager and Mr. Bakken.
Thank you, Mayor. As Mr. Bakken makes his way forward, Mayor, this is picking up, again, in coordination with the annexation request, which again has another probably 2 months of consideration before that can be made final. This is the ESA agreement to connect to our substation, and that is a required agreement that we've got to have that lays out the responsibilities for the connection, the cost, which is will be carried by ESA. It also incorporates the impact fee of the per kilowatt hour generated that will be paid at the 0.00573 amount that was approved by council back at the July meeting. This is the operating agreement, which again, it has a maintenance facility cost, again, that will be borne by ESA for the connection to the substation. This agreement it will be needed to connect to our substation. If this is approved by council, the next step will be for ESA to try to reach its own power purchase agreement with NCEMPA, North Carolina, that will allow them to buy or sell power from North Carolina Utility, or from NAKEMA, but through and in coordination with North Carolina Utilities Commission. But that will be a separate agreement, and they can't enter that agreement until they have a connection agreement with us. So we're the first step in terms of those two agreements being processed. The agreement is the same one that's been presented to you before. The town attorney may have some additional comments, but he has reviewed it in detail, and I'll let him make any of those comments on the agreement. But we did work with Power Services. We think the agreement reflects as much protection as we can place in that agreement on behalf of the town and its substation. And with that understanding, it is, if the council is inclined, it is our recommendation to approve the agreement. And with the incorporated impact fee, which we believe covers the cost, as well as it can be covered, we believe there is an entitlement of ESA to connect to our substation, and that's again, that appears to be a right that we've got to recognize. And so with that, we would ask for the approval of this agreement. Mr. Bach, if you have anything to add to that?
No, well, that's where you're at. Any questions of the manager?
As our town attorney reviewed the contract.
I have, so like, they made changes that we suggested.
Any more discussion? If not, the manager is requesting that the council request the approval for the ESA interconnection agreement. Do I have a motion of that kind?
I make a motion to approve that request.
Second. Motion is second. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Motion passed. Item 5, consideration to fill the vacant water plant chemist position with a water plant trainee. Mr. Botkin.
In late April or early May, the water plant's chemist resigned, and this position actually entailed more than just chemist work. She also was a licensed operator, and there were several hats that she wore. So when she left, we looked at the possibility of outsourcing the chemist duties, which we did, and the board did approve that. And that's working out well. I've delayed in approaching this position because I wanted to see how ESA would work out as far as doing our compliance sampling, and working very well. Their fee, annual fee for doing this is $28,200, and that's just a portion of what the chemist salary was. So what I would like to do with the board's approval is to because ESA is doing a very good job with outsourcing, is to just eliminate the chemist position and the board allow us to hire a trainee water plant operator. And this water plant operator will hopefully eventually get their license where they could indeed be a licensed operator. That's our request. There will be some savings. There'll be approximately $1,500 favorable to budget by going to this approach. And it's the same number of employees, no increase.
You've heard the request. Any questions?
If we're outsourcing that, Earl, we have someone in that position, is that correct?
Outsourcing the chemist duties, yes.
I guess my question is, in my mind, is would it be better just to continue to outsource it? Or would it be?
We will, yes. So that's the intention, to continue to outsource the chemist. We would, the chemist duties. We would actually eliminate the chemist position at the water plant.
So the last paragraph down there about hiring a trainee, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
But what the recommendation is to eliminate the chemist position, continue the outsourcing, not have a water plant chemist, but instead of just downgrade that position and hire an operator.
And we need another body, is that what you're saying?
Yes, we do.
Any more questions? With the motion that we allow this request?
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Item 6, update to the council on the water plant raw water intake. On the hot seat.
Oh, yeah, I'm used to it. Mr. Savison wanted me to give you a brief update as to where we stand on the sand issue. I've been talking about that for several months. And as you know, we did apply for a grant to fund a study. And that grant is currently, well, it has been on hold, but we received a verbal okay. They assured me that the grant will be funded. I got that from Patrick Woody from the Little Center, and also Keith Krizwicki, who's the project manager. So we are holding on a holding pattern right now, waiting for written confirmation. If we have the verbal, we are waiting for that. But just give you a brief, sort of a kind of refresher on what our situation is. The problem lies in 3 areas. One is at the intake itself, the other one is at the reservoir, and the other one is at the water plant. At the intake, they're on the news. Sand is just accumulating on that intake, and we've having to increase our dredging, which is digging a hole, digging the sand away from our intake. In fact, we just had to dredge last week, and that's about $3,500 a pop. That's just dredging one side of our intake. What is happening, sand, and you know, I haven't been here a number of years, but some of the people who have saying that the river has just, the dynamics of the river has just changed. It's over the years, I'm sure there's been development or whatever, that just changed the dynamics of the river itself. So the sand is getting from there at the intake into the raw water pumps, and from the raw water pumps it's pumped into the reservoir. Well, the sand is accumulating in this chamber, raw water chamber where all the pumps are, and it's pumping water and sand itself into the reservoir. Okay. And in the reservoir, and I think during the budget time I showed you all a picture of what the sand pile looked like. We've called it a sand berm and a sand bar, but I really don't know how to define it other than it looks more like a sand pile. A couple of weeks ago, I actually got the linemen out there in boats, and they measured all around the reservoir, and they got me a very accurate size of the big sand out in there. It's approximately 100 feet to 60 feet to 18 feet. And being it's not a perfect rectangle, it's kind of hard to get exact cubic yards, but it's somewhere in between 3,000 and 4,000 cubic yards of sand that's come from the river and then dumped into our reservoir. Well, the second part, well, I guess the third part of that problem is that it's being pumped from the reservoir into the water plant. And through this whole process, it's eating into our pumps. Where it's going around L's in the water plant, it's eating those up, and we investigated when we checked this out, so it's not something that we just assumed. But it is a major problem for us. Hopefully the study will happen in time to where we can go out and get money, be frugal and roll all this into one big bid and present it for a grant. That is the hope that we can do it. We just fund everything at once. But should the grant fall through and we not get anything, we are looking at contracting the dredging ourselves. In fact, there's some guys coming tomorrow. One is from Wilmington and somewhere else to look at that big pile of sand in the reservoir and see what the bid will be to dredge it out. But that sand pile needs to go, very, very soon because it's eating up the piles. That's what we're looking at. It's not something that's insurmountable. And I'm sure this problem's anyone on the Neuse River who's using out there. That's sort of an update. Any questions over that answer?
I mean, I have a question. Obviously the problem is coming from the river.
It is.
Is there something we can do about that?
Well, obviously there will be a way to fix that, Harris. But I think Goldsboro, and I think I mentioned this before. They had a very similar problem, and they threw a lot of money after redoing their intake, and it didn't work. So we won't do it one time, and whatever it takes to fix it right. That's the direction we want to go. And the Woot Company, who is our consultants, are very good at this. They've been in this for a number of years. They will look at different options, and options will be brought back to the board for consideration.
Is there a market for that sand?
I wouldn't think so. We have given a lot of it away when we do our dredging, and we have a pile of sand that's out of sight, and contractors come and get it. We have in the past paid to have it hauled off, which was very expensive. The sand in the reservoir will, whoever does the contracting will obviously be responsible for getting rid of that, and how they would do that will be up to them also.
Any other questions? Thank you for the update, Earl. Keep us informed.
That sure would.
Okay, item 7, update to the council on the Johnston County Water Reuse Line Project. Lenny?
Mayor, just for informational purposes, in the packet, you've got the memorandum, and I believe there is a, its map is on the wall there. We've got a larger map here, and I don't know that if we got one. Did we get a reduced one in the packet? Oh, there it is. Yes, Mayor. Mayor, if you look, there is some added information. I've got it on page. Just passed out, Shannon. Yeah, on the additional, so it doesn't have a page number. There's a reduced map that looks just like that one that you should have in your extra handout material there. I couldn't put my hand on mine, but I'll give you a line of what we try to do is just track so you could see it, just get a good look at it, see exactly where the work has been done for that reuse line from beginning to the new or to the old facility there. So you got a frame of reference there. And we try to number it also so that when Lenny's talking about it, he can refer to areas 1, 2, or 3, just for your ease of reference. And Mayor, this has been just to be clear, as Lenny goes into it, this is a county project, county cost, and they've hired a contractor to do the work. We're at the point now of the resurfacing of what's been cut, new line installed, and just having problems with the stabilization of that disturbed area, trying to get it back to where it's stabilized to an acceptable level. To a certain extent, you take the property as you find it, and as a lot of us know, the property in a lot of areas in Smithfield is soft. The ground is soft, it's tough on roads. Some of those roads had settled in a long time ago and were firm and holding up. When you go to recut it, try to repave it, it takes some special base and other ways to make it solid. So I think the county is doing its best to get to that point, so they're not being uncooperative. They're just trying to do it in a cost-effective manner. So we understand that, and I think they have taken several steps to make it work. But with that, you've got the summary in the agenda, and I'll let Lenny continue.
Good evening. Pretty much, I'll be very brief on this. The city manager asked me to kind of give an update on it. The area in question that we're having issues with is basically located from Wilson Street that runs up Vermont to Holding, and from Holding to Brightleaf Boulevard. Now, a lot of Holding Street's already been rectified, and in order for it to be paved, the county had a contractor come in and install their reclaimed water line, and the town always requires a proof rolling session before we approve it and before it can be passed. And the reason that is to detect problems like we have now. And when we done a proof roll, only portions of the road passed, and those roads were already paved and they're holding up really good and in good shape. But the areas that I turned down were for obvious reasons, and it was because of base-related issues. The county hired an outside engineering firm to come in and do core sampling in the areas that I turned down, and my assumption was correct. The base was bad material. It could have been from the time frame when the county actually put the line down and left it exposed through the climate areas where it rained and issues such as that. But nevertheless, they've got an issue out there that I'm on top of. I was actually on top of it today, and they were out on site with the contractor, and the contractor assured me that they're going to have the engineering firm out. I'm going to have staff out myself, and watch the method that they're going to do. They're actually going to go back in those areas. They're going to saw cut the broken areas out. They're going to go down and dig down, I think it's right at 4 foot, I believe, and reinstall ABC stone, get the base proof rolled, and then at that point we should be on go to get this thing wrapped up. We're looking at, just to give a good window, I'm gonna say 2 weeks, but they wanted a 4-week frame because of inclement weather, a possibility. They don't want to go back into the same issue that they've had, breaking this thing open and the rain come in and just set them back. So that's pretty much the gist of it. It has been a problem. As soon as they broke the crest open back in there, we had a similar issue last year. Had to come back to council when we broke the crust open. And we had to actually dig down 5.5 feet on Stevens Street, if you guys remember, to be able to get that thing stabilized and put in fabric and everything. So that's what I'm requesting now too. There's going to be some soil stabilization methods took, and it is going to be an intense proof roll. But I can assure you, once it does pass, it'll hold up. It's going to be a good sound road by the time it's approved. So that's pretty much the gist. I'll be glad to answer any questions you guys may have. I know I've talked to the citizens in the area, a lot of them, and they're just wanting the road back. But before I can do it, I got to make sure that it is going to be a good road.
Lenny, on Martin Street where early this spring you opened the ditch up, since they've come through, the water won't drain into it. I spoke to you before, and they came out, and I don't know what they've done, but they didn't do anything for making sure the water would drain into the drainage.
Yeah, it's not sufficient what they've done there. That is going to be a cosmetic thing. Before it's signed off, they are going to go back, and it's going to be addressed and taken care of. Right now, their big major concern is because of the amount of money it's going to cost to fix the road. They're already over $30,000 in it right now, and they're still not even close to getting this thing wrapped up, so. But no, I assure you, Mr. Williams, before they leave and they pull off this project, they will take care of the cosmetic problems there.
Thank you. I've got one easy, you used a term, I just don't understand what the term means, proof roll? What does that mean?
Proof roll is basically before you can put a surface mix on top of the road and finish it out, the base is actually proof rolled, and proof rolled is usually, it's mechanically, it can be a tandem dump truck full of rock or whatever, but it's a weighted rolling method, and you set back and you mark if it pumps or moves. You make your marks in those areas and you make them come back and dig down, however many feet you need to dig down to replace the base, so you got a good footing in there before you put your asphalt down.
So Lenny, the areas that are paved now, some of the areas, the asphalt itself is not even. It's like they just poured it wherever. I assume that's just a undercoat. Is that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
They'll come back
on Vermont Street. That was one of the methods that they chose, Councilman Moore, to go in and do, and it failed. I turned it down. I stopped them as soon as it started pumping. I stopped them right then and told them it's not going to work. I'm not going to accept it.
So when it's paved, they won't pave the entire street.
No.
But it'll be a nice straight line.
It'll be as good, if not better, than the patch that's on Holding Street right now that's done. I'm gonna require a good saw cut, clean cuts, and it's gonna be even, and it's gonna be a smooth pass. It's gonna be done with a paving machine. It's not gonna be done by hand, but it will be a patch, but it'll be a smooth patch.
Thank you, Lynn. Appreciate the update. All right, item 8, update to the council on the Piedmont natural gas issue in East Smithfield. Mr. Manager, I recognize you on that.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, and again, there are some additional materials that were passed out by the clerk. This has got business item number 8, Piedmont Natural Gas petition. And that petition, that's essentially, although I believe Mr. Dennis Williams has added more names to it, and we'll get that one out to you. That was what Mr. Williams turned into us on Friday last week. I want to make sure I got that out to you so you had an idea of the volume of interested parties in the extension of the gas line. So that's what that is, but it sounds like Mr. Williams has got even more names to add to that list. And as soon as we get that from him, we'll send that out to you too. If you recall last week or last month, we heard from Mr. Williams and had heard from him even the month before that about trying to get the gas lines in that East Smithfield area extended. Basically, there's an area of town that has some gas lines on the perimeter. I think the map that's included there that was passed out by Mr. Williams gives you at least a rough layout of those gas lines. If you look at that colored map in there, the yellow area is kind of the focus area of where there's some desire to have additional lines installed on that map in that East Smithfield area. A couple of issues are out here. One, there is a former franchise agreement that expired in August of 2008. So right now, as we stand, there is no franchise agreement with Piedmont Natural Gas. But it doesn't appear to be, I mean, it's a little bit of an open question. I'll let Mr. Spence weigh in on this, but there doesn't appear to be any replacement franchise agreement. So it seems like we're operating not under a franchise agreement, but just under state law, utility commission jurisdiction, under how we work with each other, having that franchise in there. It's a fairly specialized area with these utility locations. It is a little odd. It seems odd to me to have a utility company of any nature be operating in our jurisdiction without an agreement to turn to. Apparently that has become the case with, at least with natural gas companies and maybe some other utilities, but that does seem to be the case. I know Mr. Spence has researched it, and that seems to be the preliminary response he's getting, is that a lot of these franchise agreements are no longer in place. I think we probably need to spend some more time on that to find out what our rights of a town are to require, how we work with them in utility relocations and right-of-way issues. Because obviously, if there's work done on utility, they're in our utility, that is our property, that is our right-of-way. They'll have to take some precautions to remove their utility or replace it as needed. That's a separate issue, but that's something we've got to look into because, frankly, I don't feel comfortable with having without having specific criteria about how that relationship continues in the future. So that has been brought to light, and we'll try to get a better answer, a better feel for how we're supposed to work with Piedmont Natural Gas in that situation. With regard to the extension of the gas lines in this area, I have spoke to on several occasions and met last week with 2 representatives from Piedmont Natural Gas. Piedmont Natural Gas, just for your information, they did do a survey almost exactly 2 years ago of the same area. I think they did a mailing and also a little bit of door knocking to ask residents in that area if they were interested in, and as I understand, and they didn't really clarify it from their standpoint, but as I understand, their question in the survey was really placed to the residents of, if you have to pay for the extension of the line, not Piedmont Gas, but the residents, if you must pay for it, are you interested in, 1, paying for that extension, and 2, paying the cost of conversion to have the natural gas hooked up to your propane or presently propane appliances. That's the way the question was framed, and of the doors they knocked on or the mailers they sent out, they received approximately 25 to 28 positive responses saying that there was at least some interest in doing that, and the rest of them were negative responses. I know Mr. Williams and possibly others have gone out and gone door to door themselves, and that resulted in the petition that he presented tonight to the council. I know the one he sent to us last week had some 82 persons who had expressed an interest in obtaining gas. My guess is he's probably, over 100 now in terms of his numbers, if not more, but we can take a look at that when we receive the final petition. Piedmont Natural Gas has said if they're more than happy to conduct another survey in the area. And I told them of the actual petition that was in the works last week. I had not received it yet from Mr. Williams, and I felt that Piedmont was receptive to using that petition and verifying the names on that petition to check their level of interest with, again, extending those gas lines. Now, the question I've got is, in that when they go out and survey and resurvey and ask for help, I know there's been an interest expressed by Mr. Williams and some of the community to assist Piedmont Gas in that survey to make sure it's done in a manner that would be, conducive and maybe a more impartial question-answer kind of session. I think, a lot of times the answer is really based on how the question is framed. If the question is, if you have to pay for everything, do you want natural gas? There'll probably be a lot more no's than if Piedmont Gas is willing to extend the line at Piedmont Gas's cost. Are you willing to pay the additional conversion cost and then hook up to the natural gas? I'm pretty sure you'll get a lot more yeses. So I think there needs to be a consistent level of what is that question being asked and what's the nature of it. Speaking of Piedmont Natural Gas, and then also factoring in our franchise status, which is we don't have one, I think we're going to have a hard time, frankly, forcing Piedmont Gas, and again, without more, to extend lines without, unless there's some other hidden statute that says we can do that. And so far, we haven't found one that says we can do that. So I think as a business model, they've got to have a certain return rate, which I think they're reasonable. If I understood them correctly, it was something over 9% over, I think, a 20-year period. I think the last survey they conducted, it was at break even or at 0% or even minus 4%, if I'm not mistaken. But again, that was based on 25 or 28 interested persons. With this new number, they might be a lot closer to reaching that business model of a 9% return. Again, I believe it was over a 40 or a 20-year payback period. And that's something they're willing to look into and reinvestigate. So it's a tough situation. I know there's some concern by the residents, as expressed by Mr. Williams, that there was a promise made some 25 years ago to do something that hasn't been done. I'm not sure we can go back and enforce any kind of promise that was made there. We can certainly state the case again. I think what's going to get Piedmont Gas's attention is any rights that we have as a matter of North Carolina statute, or 2, if the business model suggests that they can actually make money over a time frame, that'll make it interesting for them. I think my recommendation would be, with the council's support, would be to allow staff to go back and request Piedmont Gas to conduct another survey and investigate the petition or an updated petition provided by Mr. Williams to verify what the interest level is now, and also if they're going to conduct a survey, ask 2 questions, not 1. 1, are you interested if Piedmont Gas extends a line at its cost in connecting, and then you paying a conversion cost to your own appliances? And second question, are you interested in paying a line extension fee and then also paying the conversion cost, whatever that may be? That'll be different from house to house, what that, conversion cost would be. Let them do a survey along those lines, get their results, and then let them perform their own business analysis as to whether it makes sense for them. So Mayor, I think I was instructed to come back with a report. That's the result. So I need some direction from the council. And again, Piedmont was cooperative. They're willing to go back out and survey. But it's just my feeling, for a lot of reasons, at the end of the day, I think the business model, that is, will it actually make money for them over a certain time frame, is really going to be what's going to make them more willing and interested to extend those lines, as opposed to just the sheer demand to do so on a, that won't pay itself back in a, foreseeable future.
When you were talking to them, you brought up something about when they take surveys, they ask different questions and tell people different things. If they would do a survey, it should be a survey written out and approved by the town. Whenever they go, the questions they ask the citizens, so we would know what it is, because they ask some citizens one thing, other citizens a different thing. I mean, about this thing. But since they don't have a contract, I think if the city would join in and go to the utility commissions and ask the youth and present it just like Mr. Williams presented to us the last time, and get them involved with it, we probably get a better thing, because this thing has been going around for over 20 years. I have taken surveys, just about everyone interested have taken surveys. Every time it's something different, they ask. The gas companies, you say one thing, they ask the customers another thing and tell them they have to have different types of appliances in the houses, different things to be qualified for it. And this is what had been going on for years and years, and they've been going around in circles. And when they decide to put gas in an area, they push it in, even in our area, but other areas they decide to leave out. So I think it's time for the town to just go to the utility commission, this ask the utility commission to help us with that, negotiate with the gas company, so that it won't be between town now and gas company say, well, we don't have a contract or anything like that. There'll be someone that can help make a decision, encourage the gas company or us to work it out so we can accomplish it. And taking another survey, I don't see where that would be, if that's the way everybody wants to do it. Because every time I found out that when the gas companies, you take a survey, the gas companies take a survey, they tell citizens something different. Sometimes they tell them things that they really know that they're not going to see it.
Yes, sir. I think the Utility Commission, again, I feel like we're kind of, I think there's probably a lot more to it. I just would hate to go to the Utility Commission a few months earlier, and the only survey that's really of record is their last survey, which is not too persuasive, and only having 20 some odd. I'm sure they would submit that as a matter of the record. We surveyed it, we tried it, we only got back 20, whatever it was, 7 responses. It just wasn't justified. And I understand completely what you're saying, because I've heard it from several people exactly the same thing you were saying about the survey that was done 2 years ago. And even I think there was one done before that, going back 4 or 5 years ago. I think the only thing I'd say is if we can, give the Piedmont Gas, at least encourage them to ask those questions a little bit more formally, and also give them the petition names that have been provided so far, all those, and really get it nailed down. What I would hope is that the record would be better if it ever got before the Utilities Commission, that instead of 27, there would be 85 who have a good understanding of what they're being asked and still have an interest. And that may help our case before the Utilities Commission if in fact we have a good. Now, would it take an extra couple months? Yes, but, you know, when I talk to Piedmont, I mean, they seem willing to do the right thing. As I said, it's all about how you ask the question. But I think, you know, they do it pretty quickly, and they get a big group of people to go out there and get it done. It might be worth another, say, 60 days of patience to get that survey and just kind of see what happens. And if not, we can always, or the residents, Mr. Williams and company, we can always rely on their petition separate from the survey and submit that ourselves. But it might help. We might find some middle ground that we can all live with.
Would it be possible, you think, Paul, that if we could get Piedmont to give us a copy of what they're going to be asking and just say, you know, we want to partner with you on this on behalf of the citizens, and in doing that, you know, what are the questions exactly that you're going to ask in written form, and then we can make sure that the citizens get the right questions.
Yes, sir. I'm sure they would share it with us. I don't know their process exactly. I know they send out 8 or 10 people and they go and knock on doors over a couple days period. Try to catch them at home to discuss it. If they don't, I think they leave some sort of door hanger that's mailed back to the company. And I think part of the problem with that process is that there's many people who are interested who work during the day and can't really or not inclined to answer the door hanger. And so there's no response there, and that works against the survey. But I think if there were some more people helping out from the community who could go to those houses after the fact, even with an endorsed, approved question answer from Piedmont Gas, we might get more respondents to that, and I think that'd be worth asking anyway.
Well, we have no problem if Piedmont Gas wanted to do so, and contact the town and contact the citizens in the community and let them know when they're coming in, and you know, the citizens could go with them around to help them interview the people. But they have a written script whenever they go to the people, be able to tell them, this is what we offer, this is what you accept it. Because what is really happening before is they tell the citizens a different story at different times.
I think it would be helpful if we could get Piedmont to agree to that. And Mr. Williams, I'm sure, would agree to help facilitate that on his community's behalf, if we could get them together. Would that be agreeable, Mr. Williams?
Yes, and on the conversion, we've already talked to contractors, and the people in the community clearly understand that the conversion from the meter to their house is covered by them. That should be a non-issue with the gas company. We have contractors, the community has contractors ready to do the conversion. All we need is the natural gas line and meters.
Okay. But,
in terms of direction, you need to continue what you're doing. I'd like for you to explore the legal relationship we have with Piedmont, but at the same time also explore with Piedmont and hopefully continue to build a rapport where everybody can work together and let them know that this is not just a couple of residents, it's an entire town that wants this looked at and taken care of. I say keep plowing forward with Mr. Williams and all the interested.
A couple questions I have. They have a franchise here, whether the contract is outdated or not. Are we gaining any financial value from them in the form of any taxes or anything?
Yeah.
That'd be a question I'd have.
I need to look at that. I think there is, and I don't know if it's franchise or utility tax, what form it takes. I think there is one that's paid, and I can't say if it's on volume what it is, but I can take a look at that and see.
and what is it based on? Is it based on their property value here, or how are they assessed?
I think we need to explore that one way or the other.
I think if I remember it, of course, I still need to research it, but it also has to do with the lines run, the ground, city ground that it's running on, access, volume. There's 2 or 3 components on that franchise contract that the town does. Money change hands? We do get some allowance. I'm just not sure what that is.
I believe, again, whether it's utility tax or franchise fee, I believe there's an annual payment that's paid.
Maybe time
state,
to-
state regulated. I don't know that it's a per line cost. I don't know the calculation on that, but I can try and research that too.
Mr. Mayor, the other thing I wonder is if it would be appropriate for the city council to pass a resolution or work up a resolution to approve at our next meeting, asking the gas company to work with our citizens in that area to help them as a good corporate citizen.
I think it's a good idea. Get one drafted and bring it back to this council. Next meeting. So, good idea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anything else? Mr. Williams, stand by. We'll get you engaged. And real briefly, if you've got something, real brief.
Just as a brief economic capital, over the last 23 years, each resident has spent $63,000 in 23 years to heat their home. That was enough money for each individual homeowner without a loan to totally remodel their homes. That's why it's of economic importance to those that are there now that this be done, because new people are building homes. And I don't have time to give you the addresses and show you how the lines were laid. We have one lady who, her mother lives across the street, received natural gas. They refused to give her natural gas right across the street. We have Swazet Eason here. Natural gas is behind her house, across the street, but the gas company said she needs 3 other people in order to get it on her street. Well, I have those 3 other people. They've already signed giving it to Piedmont. They still say no.
And again, I think this council is agreeing with you, and we're trying to position in the best citizen way we can.
Yes.
So please stay engaged with the manager, and let's see if we can't move forward. Okay? Thank you very much for your efforts too. Appreciate that. Okay, let's move to item 9. Update to the council, Mr. Manager, on the Smithfield Crossings project. You and Paul.
Mayor, I want to really just give you a quick update and allow Mr. Embler basically to give you more of the more recent update on the project from a construction standpoint on the crossings. Got a little bit of information for the last couple of weeks and in general. I wanted to let you know as before we get there that if you recall back in June, we did pass a capital project ordinance for this project using the same number that's always been allocated for this project of $6,156,800 in terms of the cost. And last report is, this is through the end of July, there has been $4,066,629 expended on this project from under that project ordinance, basically that capital project ordinance. So we're about 2/3 through the amount of funds there for the project, which I think more than matches the amount of work that's been accomplished. So I think that is a good place to be, and also want to credit Mr. Andrew Harris, our interim finance director, who's done a good job of finally trying to demystify all of the revenue and all the cost of this project. It's been an uphill battle, and I think we're close to the end of that demystifying process with this project. And again, not because of anything unknown, really just because of the way it was financed over so many years and so many different funds were involved. But it has been reassuring to know that total appropriation amount of $6.156 million has remained consistent throughout the project. And the amount of revenue on the project also has consistently equaled that $6.156 million. So I think we're in good shape there. Again, we've got some pretty heavy lifting to go these last 4 or 5 months of the project. The end date is still hopefully by the end of this calendar year in December of this year. That is still what we're looking for. Mr. Emmer may touch on a little bit. If you recall, we had to cancel the contract for the one portion, the ramp of the project. at DOT's request because of a delay in that moving forward until the roundabout completion, the turnaround was completed. We're still going through that. DOT has not let the new contract, but I think they're hustling to get that in order so they can hopefully have somebody out there later this fall to complete that project once they're able to take the field and complete that project. So we're working with DOT. I know Mr. Emler talked to DOT as recently as today, I believe, to get an update on where that stood. So we're trying to keep that coordinated, but that has been taken over by NCDOT. That is that second or that separate phase of the project, which basically involves the ramp and the main part of Highway 70. And if you recall, there was a certain amount of money allocated for that project, which DOT has agreed to use that amount, and any excess funds that they've agreed to pay, any excess funds that may result as a higher bid on the second time around. With that, on the financial side, I'm going to let Mr. Emler give you a little bit more, a few more details just on the construction progress, which again, over the last, say, 2 months, and really since Mr. Emler has been involved with it on a regular basis each and every day, he does perform a few tasks on the project to keep it moving and move forward. It has really taken shape and in fact has moved forward to his credit. So with that, I'm going to let Mr. Emler give you an update on the more recent activity.
Okay. I'm going to say a few things that's going to kind of go along with what the manager has already told you. The contract is in two parts. Part A is the DOT-funded portion of the contract and the DOT-managed portion of the contract. We really are working with them on that. And the reason for that is the federal funding that was associated with it. It kind of mandated that DOT do that. Part B is the contract that we're specifically working with PLT Contractors, which is starts at the Hess store and loops around back up through the pine thicket there and comes back out at CC's, and then the work that you see going along on the shoulder of Industrial Park Drive. As the manager noted, that Part A is presently suspended by DOT, and the key to timing the restart of that process with DOT is when the traffic rerouting will occur. And what's going to happen is that Industrial Park Drive, the entrance into there, will be stopped at a point in time, and all the traffic for a period of time will reroute down the new road that's constructed by the Hess, come out by the CC's, get back on Industrial Park Drive. So from CC's back to the traffic signal at Burger King, it will be out of service for a period of 2 to 3 months while that work's being done. And the key to that is when we start the rerouting to construct the roundabout. And we're about maybe 2.5 weeks away from that. We're looking at sometime mid-September, maybe a little bit later, maybe around the 20th, when that cutover in traffic pattern is going to occur. And that triggers DOT when they get back in the act. And that means that they have to put a bid package together, go back out to bid again for the remainder of the portion of their work, get prices on it. But as Mr. Savison said, that's their monkey. They take care of that. The thing we're concerned is that we come to a common conclusion with both projects at about the same time, which right now we're looking at just before Christmas is what the schedule we've been given by the contractor. Now, in order to meet that schedule, one critical thing is going to have to be done. We're going to have to work through the holiday season, because if we wait to after the holiday season, we have to wait to the April-May time frame or March-April time frame for the contractor to remobilize. January and February, for a lot of the reasons that Lenny described, the soil conditions get such that you can't work with it. You've got to get it done and capped before that time. So we're planning to work through the holidays this year in order to get it done before Christmas. DOT going through their bid process will go somewhere 45 to 60 days before they actually get out there. If you back in the time that DOT says it will take them to build it, which is about 60 days for the remainder of the work that they have to do, if you back that in from mid-December, that puts you about mid-October that they need to be out there. They're going to hit it somewhere between mid-October and the 1st of November, probably getting a contractor back out there to finish their part. So, you know, it's dicey as far as getting them out there and getting them moving. As far as the overall project completion, this is not based on money spent, but rather actually work performed, because there's some really big items, ticket items that are out there that have already been paid for, that are in the ground that you don't see. But the crossings Part B, which is the PLT contract, is about 75% complete. And in reality, when you look at the cost of it, it's about 75% complete also. The NCDOT project didn't have as much big stuff in the ground. Most of their stuff is above the ground in the form of big overhead signs. Those things are very expensive, into the hundreds of thousands of dollars a piece. And they will be going up the latter part. Their actual roadway construction is really pretty simple. It's not a lot of work. They just got to tear up a little bit of pavement and regrade it and tie back into the roundabout when it's constructed. Over the last week, things that have been accomplished, that the Smithfield Crossing Drive was closed. That's the drive that runs behind Ruby Tuesdays and the CC Pizza. It was closed to obtain proper grades tying to the roundabout and proposed finished grades on the crossing drive itself. The removal of the asphalt and stone on Smithfield Crossings Drive and the replacement of that same stone to the new grades that will be required for the roundabout. The completion and temporary permanent seating of the denuded areas associated with Street A and Old Goldsboro Road, and the tie-in of the curb and areas around the roundabout. And the one that's the big one, we have an overhead sign on that part of the project. It'll be immediately behind the Hess store, and all the technical data for that has been completed. They call it dimensioning, is what they call the sign. That's getting it ready to go in the air, and that's one of those big bar signs that go completely across the road, have a lot of information up there. Coming up over the next couple of weeks, it's intended to install the overhead sign on Street A. That's what I just referred to. Grading in the vicinity of the roundabout, grading for Industrial Park Road widening, installation of the base course and binder course on Industrial Park Drive, placement of the curb and gutter on Industrial Park Drive, and complete the construction of the storm drainage structures on Industrial Park Drive. And finally, on or around the 15th to the 20th of the month, the rerouting traffic on Street A for approximately September the 18th is the day that they have on their schedule. And then as soon as that's done, they'll install the guardrail and do the traffic switch. So we'll be looking at a different traffic pattern. The reason why it's important for the town to know the date, we're going to notify all the businesses through the Chamber of Commerce and the newsletter and the town webpage that we will be experiencing a traffic change out there. So stand open for any questions.
Any questions?
I have a question. During this peak season out there, the retail season, will traffic be impeded by the closure of any of the current lanes? Will it go down to one lane one way or the other? Are you clear on that?
We will be maintaining the same number of lanes out there. What they're going to do is the side closest, the side of Industrial Park Drive that is away from the interstate, in other words, adjacent to Partners Equity, that is in the process. They're going to widen that. They're going to put the new curb in. They're going to pave it, and at least with a binder course, they won't put the wear course on it. Then they'll shift the traffic lanes over under that pavement. And then what is now Industrial Park Drive, the pavement where it exists now, they'll tear that up and work on that side. So we're going to keep the same number of lanes open. It's just the lanes are going to be in a different location.
Just reiterate, that's a very important time of year for those businesses, and we make sure the flow stays constant as best we can.
We're definitely going to endeavor to do that and move it along as quickly as we can. It's to the contractor's benefit to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we had item 10 that was added. Reeves, I'll recognize you, Council.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
Mayor and council, just in previous months, I had asked the town manager about, did he have a way, a means and method of maintaining the earned compensatory time for our exempt employees based upon the town handbook, employees handbook, in which he assured me he did. He does have such a log, and I would just like to ask if he could amend that to include a description of how that time is earned, along with the date and hours earned to his existing log sheet, if that's not a problem.
No, sir, it's not a problem at all. In fact, we've got the dates and the time, and we can add a brief description, you know, a couple words if it's attending a meeting or something after hours or, you know, an event. They can just do that to give a quick reference if that'll meet what you're looking for. That way it's kind of tied to a little bit more specific event as opposed to just a raw time with, you know, no other detail. We can do that. We've got some pretty good forms on that, so.
Is there, refresh my memory, is there something in there that gives them a time frame they have to use the comp time earned within a certain pay period or month or?
The policy really says use as soon as practicable, basically. And I don't see anything right here that says within 30 days or whatever. If they don't use, they can't carry any more than 40 hours from the end of a fiscal year. So they can't just accrue hundreds of hours and carry that for indefinite time, at least for the exempt employees. It really just says use efficiency and as soon as you can, basically, you know, within reason. So not a set time, basically. So, I mean, not in this section I've got here. I don't recall any other 90-day or 60-day period to do that.
I think that rule was 1 week or 1 month. It's pretty much arbitrary.
Say that again?
So I think the Fed rule was 1 week to 1 month, and the last time I looked at it, which was a year or two ago, it was, you know, arbitrary. So there's a, you know, we're talking about the town policy, right? Right. And I'm saying, what happens if you get part of the Social Security Commission?
Yeah, the provision here I've got says, and such compensatory time should be taken by the employee as soon as reasonably possible with the consent of his or her supervisor or department head. So that's just an incentive to take it, obviously, sooner than later.
I don't think that'll work. It's too loose.
So you're saying that there needs to be a time period established, is that what you're recommending?
That is my memory of it. It's been a while, and I believe it was within 30 days of the month. That's just my reference.
Well, you know, one of the first questions I would have is how much comp time are they accruing? I don't have a vision on our average, the employees we're talking about, are they accruing an hour a week, 2 hours a week,
I think it's
an hour
right.
a week?
Yeah, I think on that. I mean, I think you're talking about department heads versus supervisors. I mean, I think it's anywhere from on a tough week, you know, 4, 5, 6 hours in 1 week to some weeks or many weeks where there's no comp time accrued at all. So, I mean, I think in a heavy month it might be 15 or 20 hours, but I think that would be a heavy comp time month for most department heads. And I review their sheets they turn in on, you know, after every pay period, basically. You know, I mean, like one event, you know, at Parks and Rec, you know, you can work 4 or 5 hours just on a Saturday, you know, during a softball event or something like that. But again, you know, they actually do a pretty good job of limiting the comp time they accrue in that supervisory level and burning it in the near future. They, you know, I encourage department heads and supervisors, whether they're exempt or non-exempt, to encourage the comp time to be used as soon as possible and first and foremost before they get the other kind of vacation or other time.
Town attorney, you suggesting that we change that policy to put a time frame on it?
Well, it's one thing for exempt employees, another thing for non-exempt employees, but for non-exempt employees, I think we should put time right on. I think there's a guideline on it. I can't quote it, and I'm not sure if it's for a pay period. It's something we could research. Something we probably should research. And then the rule will not be flexible all the time.
So how do we resource that? Is that what you-
Research it.
Research. How do we do that?
Probably on the Security Commission website. I can research it. Okay.
I have full trust in you.
So you're going to bring that back to us next month, Mr. Smith?
I'm going to bring that back to you if I can find it, I'll be sure.
Or email it to us. You don't have to wait till long.
Is that a consensus group?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Any motion, that's just consensus.
Just consensus, okay. Okay, sir. All right, Ms. Banner, you got that? Yes, sir. All right. Under the mayor's report, the only thing I really want to highlight, other than what we've already highlighted tonight, is we have a proclamation that I'll be doing in the morning for the ladies with the DAR. It's the proclamation of Constitution Week, which we do each year, and they're so thankful that we do take the time to do that, and we come here to these chambers and do that proclamation tomorrow, so that's what we'll be doing. We do have several ribbon cuttings that are scheduled. We have businesses that are coming into our place, our community, and which is very good, so we'll be attending those as well. Under council comments, do we have any council who should be heard? Anything?
I just had just a comment, Mr. Mayor. It's around the email that I sent out back in August regarding the city of Covington, Georgia. I guess most of you got it. They are a community much like Smithfield. They have a population of roughly 13,000. At one time, they're located in one of the 10 fastest growing counties in the nation, much like Johnston County is. But they were hit pretty hard by the economic downturn. And in 2010, they had the highest unemployment rate in Georgia, ranking among the top 20 most stressed U.S. counties in the nation. And I send this out sent the email out just as I guess a glimmer of hope. Baxter Pharmaceuticals decided to locate just outside of Covington in, I guess it's, Councilman Harris, you probably know, is that Newton? I think it's Newton County, and decided to build roughly a $1.3 billion facility. And $1.3 billion facility located in this community that was very economically stressed. And I say this because as a team, I think we have laid the foundation for such an opportunity. I think we just need to remain focused, especially now with Mr. Johnson going over to the county, where we are losing that resource, but also, I guess, gaining a resource, if you will, from an economic standpoint. So I hope we can definitely continue our working relationship, which I know we will, Chris, under your leadership. But I think we need to stay focused and committed to economic development if we want to make the turn in the right direction. And it can become a reality, and it only takes one success to turn that corner. With Smithfield, we are centrally located in the eastern United States, right off of Highway 95, US 301, US 70, and US 40. We're right around the corner from RDU, which makes us very convenient for business travel, as well as for international air distribution. The county's announced that they're building a new terminal out at the airport, which will also benefit us. We're a 2-hour drive from state ports. We're about an 8 to 10 hour drive from major distribution hubs, such as Louisville, Kentucky, 20 minutes from Raleigh, Wake County. And I think most importantly, we have access to a great community college system that already has a curriculum in the pharmaceutical industry. I'm not saying that we just strictly focus on that by any means. I just say that because this is the example that I came across. We have our certified sites available, and we're already located within minutes of many major pharmaceutical companies such as Grifols, Hospira, Becton Dickinson, Novo Nordisk, and most pharmaceutical companies, as you see from those examples, they tend to locate around each other because they know that the workforce is there, the infrastructure many times is there, and which we have. We have the infrastructure in place for such. So I just say that we need to stay focused in these times. As Chris is leaving, we had Chris as our economic steward, so we need to come up with a plan and continue on with it. Covington, they have they've created a citizen group, an urban redevelopment authority, and we may want to look at that, explore that. One of the mission parts of the mission statement from that authority is to rehabilitate and replace substandard housing with safe, clean, comfortable, attractive, and affordable housing. That's listed as their in their mission statement. So we may want to look at that. We may want to look at creating a citizen, redevelopment authority, or economic authority, if you will. And I'd be glad to contact them. And this is just one example. And like I said, I just came across it. But be glad to contact them if anybody's interested in knowing more, maybe even taking a trip down to Georgia sometime, maybe taking a Georgia football game there, Councilman Harris.
I actually, my college roommate was from Covington. I spent many a night in downtown Covington, and the trivia, one of the claim to fame of Covington, it was the initial scenes for the start of Dukes of Hazzard. That town was filmed on the square in Covington, and there's been some movies. A Man Called Peter was filmed there, in one of the churches. But I think Councilman Moore has some very valid points. I had a citizen come visit me recently, and he was on fire. He had, unbeknownst to me, we have a man and woman that lives over in my neighborhood who moved in 2 or 3 years ago. No, it's been longer than that because I'll be on the council 4 or 5 years ago. And this couple did a very lengthy evaluation of where they wanted to live. He was, I didn't realize this, but he was the voice of the farmer's market. And whether that's on radio or TV, I don't know, radio. And I didn't know that until this gentleman told me on my back porch. But they did a rather lengthy analysis of the area for retirees. And what they looked at were things like the price of homes, the cost of living, the conveniences, and they chose Smithfield. And this gentleman on my back steps was saying, guys, we need to focus on retirees in Smithfield because we got everything a retiree wants, with a hospital and blah, 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 great facilities, track, cemetery. They're about full. Funeral. But his comment to me was with Chris leaving and going to the county, he was not advocating that we look at hiring a full-time employee, which we've had conversation with in the past, but he was thinking that we needed to become more focused in Smithfield and perhaps a commission of some type, and this gentleman volunteered to help. But I think it's time that we reevaluate our focus on economic development, and let's figure out what the best tool for us going forward, working in conjunction with Chris at the county, but where we need to go from here and what we can do better as a town on economic development that we've done in the past, particularly with the passing of Chris to the county. He's not going to be available to do that. Our staff is overworked, but we need more of a focus, and I shared some of this with Daniel a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and I would appreciate any comments that you would have about this.
Well, as we discussed, Harris, I think it's prime time that we do because of the transition that we're under now, but also, with some of the awareness that we've talked about in Covington and other examples. So I really would support an economic authority or group, if you will, I don't care what you call it, but with the mission assignment of that, and I think that would be very wise for us to do. And take that into consideration. In fact, if there's a way we could get some information from other places, Paul, that would show us that type of authority or type of group. And Chris, you may know some of those too. Just because you're from the county, we can still give you something to do. It's something that we could do with developing or some ideas and then pull together. And as we've done before, if there's 2 or 3 of the council that would like to serve and go ahead and spearhead this as a subcommittee, I think now would be the time to assign that, if y'all are amenable to that.
I like it, sir. I think it's a great idea.
I thought you established one a while back. I went to a meeting.
Well, Chris put together a meeting with my help, a little bit of my help, and we did actually have a meeting. In fact, I think you were in attendance at the so I've kind of started a little something like that, but for various reasons, we haven't gone forward with that. But that's the kind of group, and that group may not be the right group, but I think that and I believe it was your suggestion, Lee, that we form a subcommittee from a couple of councilmen to research this and come up with maybe with the assistance of the city manager and a couple of councilmen, come up with a plan to bring back to the council for discussion.
I think it'd be great if the rest of the council is so choosing. We have 2 volunteers, Mr. Harris and Mr. Moore. Are there one more maybe who'd like to serve? If you 3 will get together as a subcommittee and brainstorm and pull some things together, Paul, if you'll get leadership with them.
Yeah, I'll help if y'all want to meet at Town Hall, and just let me know some dates or whatever's good for you. And what I'll try to do on the side is try to get you some models, and again, Chris, before he gets too busy with the county, maybe can give me some direction on, and it's a lot of different choices, but look at those groups, whether advisory and official authority or some other group that's something in between.
I certainly think Chris is a wealth of knowledge in that category, and I know he's moving on to the county, but if we could impose on him to in some way be involved with us as you can, you would be a great asset to that.
One of the things when I met with Rick is the fact that the county does not have a strategic plan. Not just Smithfield, but the county as a whole. And one of the goals that I want to do, not only with Smithfield, but also all the municipalities, because the municipalities are tax-paying, county tax-paying entities, is to come up with a comprehensive plan for the entire county. And it would be certain, every community would be tailored for what they want. And as I mentioned in public living press, what may work in Kinley and what Kinley may want may be completely different to Benson, and the same thing goes with Smithfield. So one of the things that I've been tasked to do, or will be tasked to do, because I haven't started still on the job with DSDC until the 20th, which we do have a couple of great events coming up on the 13th and the 20th, so I'm not inviting that, but is to meet with all the municipalities and come up with a comprehensive plan and figure out, are we doing it right? Is the County Economic Development Office structured the way it should be to work running as efficient as it should be? I have no problem. I've been working for a nonprofit for the past 13 years and have no problem looking at figuring out should that office be changed to some kind of authority or some kind of public-private entity. So I'm going in with, just because they've done it this way for the past 20, 30 years doesn't mean the county needs to continue doing that. But that's going to be, I don't speak for the county commissioners nor the county manager, but it's one of the things that he and I have had a discussion about, of looking at it to see if we're doing the best job we possibly can for municipalities as well as for the county.
Thank you.
And just back to this point, and Councilman Harris's point about the retirement, it's something I think I mentioned during our planning retreat is, whatever the segment is, I don't know, but that is one area that was discussed, and the example, we may not have the housing per se for lots of young new families to come in looking a brand new house, such as the Clayton area, but I did market, our company did market a townhome community there, and about 85%, there was about 135 to 140 townhomes, and Daniel, I know you've heard this story before, but out of those 135 to 40 sales, probably 85% of the residents were from out of state, and probably the same percentage, 80 to 90% of the people who did buy were retirees. And the reason that they came is because their children had bought a home in the Flowers Plantation area, and they wanted to be near their children. And that's why they downsized, they sold the properties in New York. We had sales in New York, lots from Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida, because this area was located right in the middle. And they came. So Smithfield, we don't have all the new housing, but we do have a lot of houses that would be very attractive to, retirees. We've got a lot of one-story, single-story ranches, which is what retirees would be looking for most of the time. So anyway, it's a good thought. I'm glad you brought that back up, Councilman Harris.
So the subcommittee will get together, work with the manager. We'll look forward to some feedback. Thank you, Council. Okay, Mr. Manager, I'll recognize you for your report.
Mayor, just briefly, you've got the written report. Item number 8 is really just a summary of the meeting I had last week on the Bookadary Road extension. Many of our department heads met with NCDOT last week. If you recall, this project is really extending the Bookadary Road on the 301 side from basically the intersection in front of or near the Shrek, and in front of the Shrek, in front of the high school and the charter school, all the way to the 301 connection there. And of course, it would connect near the Walmart and actually tie into what's known as the Ava Gardner Avenue in its final plan. It was a good meeting. There's still a map that was created by DOT, and I think there was a hearing apparently several years ago here in the council about the routing and the laneage and the size, preliminary, of certain that can change. But I want to let you know that DOT called this meeting. They're trying to get it to the next level, which is really to get a little bit more detailed plan and start at least preparing for a right-of-way acquisition as necessary to get the project to the next level. So that's the good news. It is an officially named DOT project. It is not a funded DOT TIP project. It is not funded yet. And unfortunately, with some of the changes that have occurred in the last year, it won't be funded, really, they said virtually impossible for it to be funded before 2015. And that being the case, it'll be funded under the new funding formula that the State General Assembly has adopted, which really is a little bit less beneficial to our district, and a lot of the funding will come through a district-by-district kind of need-based. So really, that's kind of bad news of that. It may be more difficult to actually get it funded, but it'll be more difficult for all TIP projects to get funded at that point. So kind of good news, bad news. Good news is DOT is moving forward to move that project along. I think their hope is we're going to push it forward to this point and then, get in line to get it funded. But if in the, during that same time frame, there is another federal act that provides some sort of kind of shovel-ready project program again, it would qualify for that possibly, which, it could happen. So that's the status on that. It's a good plan. They did ask for, if the council's interested, in the town submitting sometime over the next several months or early next year, a request that at the appropriate time and when the funds or when the numbers are known, that the town would consider participating in a cost-sharing basis of extended sidewalks for the new road. So really that's no commitment, just saying we have an interest to do that. And what they do is based on your size of the project and size of your town, it's either a 10%, 20%, or 30% match of the total cost of the sidewalks, or even more, it could be as much as 50%. But again, it doesn't commit us to doing it. It just shows that we have an interest in doing that. And then they do a cost analysis of the sidewalk, come back and tell us what it is and what our share would be, and then we have to make a commitment, a formal commitment that we agree to pay that amount. So again, that may be something I present to you in the next few months, just showing an interest that we'd like to consider that. Only because if we don't submit that, we lose that opportunity. We can always say no down the road, but if we don't submit it, we don't even have that opportunity. So I think it's something we should follow up on. But it was a good meeting, and it's a big project. We'll have a good influence if it ever gets built in the near future there. And Mayor, that's all I have in my report. You've got the other details, most of which we've talked about, from the Piedmont Gas to the Crossings Project to the water reuse line, all included in the report, but we heard more detail tonight just as an update. And I hope those updates will be helpful for the council. I just feel like from time to time, there's some things we need to talk about that don't necessarily need a decision today. I think today the water intake discussion is something we've talked around on many occasions. But at the end of the day, if we do something along those lines, we're talking about $1 million to $1.5 million in improvement. It's a big project and one that we just need to do to upkeep our system and to improve it. Not to say bigger and better, but just a true maintenance need that we're going to have to fill. The good news is that we do have some available funds in our water sewer fund balance that we could use to pay for such projects. So some good news there too. That's something we got to keep an eye on in moving forward. Also, part of my report, it does include the most recent report on the RATA project. If you have an interest there, there's an update on that project, which is moving forward. That's all I have.
We don't have anything else.
Okay, I do have one question. I'll limit my question to one question on finances. Page 247, and Lenny, this is in your thing, the line item drainage. We've already spent 43.85% of the budget. In 1 month, we've spent 43.85% of the budget. Is that something that's going to be a problem? Or is that just a one-time expense that came early, or?
Well, what it is basically, we went ahead and basically set the funds aside for a certain dollar amount. So it's not even speak. Okay. It's just money we went ahead and got a PO for. We're setting on it for the company we buy materials with and stuff such as that. None of that's not
Thank you. Anything else for the group before we go? I need a motion to go in closed session for NCPS 43, 18, 11, 3, 5, and 6.
Make a motion.
Second, those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed?